But the story that we are breaking tonight at the top, an internal committee had submitted a report to the principal on July 9 in the Odisha sexual harassment case that led to the self-immolation of a young girl student and has now provoked outrage both in Odisha and across the country. There was an Odisha Bandh, remember, today called by the Biju Janata Dal. The committee had suggested the transfer or suspension of the head of department who had been accused of sexual harassment. Sources now saying police had sought a report at that time. The principal didn't share the report with the police. The girl who said her complaints were falling on deaf ears self-immolated herself and passed away earlier yesterday. So clearly at the moment, there is a sense that the girl's complaints and the recommendations of the internal committee of the college were not adhered to and led to self-immolation and has triggered this widespread outrage. A 20-year-old Odisha student from Balasore, remember, died after setting herself on fire. She had alleged harassment by her HOD Sameer Sahu and inaction by the college authorities. Protests have erupted across Odisha as her father fights for justice, claiming his daughter has been murdered. The big question, will the system finally listen? Is sexual harassment on campuses one of the worst kept secrets in this country? That's what I'm going to focus on in a moment. But first, take a look at all that's happened in that case today.
The 20-year-old student of Fakir Mohan University got absolutely no support in the weeks that followed her complaint about sexual harassment by a professor. Her death has galvanized politicians, activists, students across Odisha, triggering angry protest. Making one wonder, why was this outrage missing when she first sought justice? On June 20th, the victim filed her first complaint to Principal Dilip Ghosh, alleging that the head of department, Sameer Sahu, was harassing her and seeking sexual favors. Shockingly, this complaint was filed in the presence of the accused. Days later, she submitted a second complaint to the principal. This too was ignored. On June 30th, she sent a third reminder. This too got no response. On July 1st, the desperate victim approached the college's internal complaints committee with her grievance. She also posted it online, tagging government officials and even reaching out to Chief Minister Mohan Manji, Union Education Minister, State Education Minister, and other higher officials. By July 12th, betrayed and hopeless, she gave up the fight, taking the extreme step of self-immolation. 2 days later, after suffering 96% burn injuries, she was declared dead. His daughter taken from him too soon, the father is shattered.
वो प्रिंसिपल को प्रिंसिपल जी के रूम से आके सुसाइड का अटेम्प्ट लिया, तो कुछ तो होगा इधर। तो एक अच्छा बच्ची प्रिंसिपल के रूम के अंदर जाता है, 20-25 मिनट के बाद वो इधर आके सुसाइड का अटेम्प्ट लेता है। क्यों? कुछ तो होगा इधर ना। मुझे भगवान को तो मालूम है कि मैं तो इधर नहीं था, सच्ची बोलता मैं तो इधर नहीं था। बाद में मुझे वीडियो देते इधर उधर देते सबसे पूछते तो मुझे मालूम हुआ। तो कुछ तो होगा। अब अंदाजा लगाइए क्यों ऐसा होगा। कुछ तो इधर होगा। कोई ऐसे क्या आपको आग में डाल देगा? कोई ऐसा कर सकता है क्या? मेरा बात समझ
On Wednesday, the streets of Odisha erupted in anger. The principal opposition party, B.Ed, called a Balasore Bandh. The Congress has called a statewide Bandh on Thursday. The ruling BJP has urged rivals not to politicize the incident.
उड़ीसा के वर्तमान सरकार ने एक त्वरित पदक्षेप लेकर के कॉलेज के अध्यक्ष, कॉलेज के प्रिंसिपल, इन लोगों को सस्पेंड करना, जेल के हिरासत में लाना, ये सारे काम सरकार ने बहुत ही कड़ा कार्यानुष्ठान के दौरान किया हुआ है। लेकिन इस चीज़ को लेकर के पॉलिटिक्स करना, राजनीति करना, ये अत्यंत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है।
आप एफआईआर तक रजिस्टर नहीं किया, इतना बड़ा अपराध आप कानूनन किया है, तो इनको ये पुलिस वर्दी पहनने लायक नहीं है, इनको डिसमिस कर देना चाहिए। वो अभी तक कुछ नहीं हुआ है। एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर को बताया था, वो खुलेआम घूम रहा है, उसको तुरंत मंत्रिमंडल से बर्खास्त करना चाहिए।
That, in a way, sums up the story of crimes against women in India. Political parties take a stand depending on where the crime happened, in a state ruled by them or their rivals. The call for justice rings louder than ever before. But is anyone listening? With Anirban Roy, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's raise the big questions. How widespread is sexual harassment on our campuses? Is there simply little protection for girl students, especially from their own teachers? Is justice above politics possible in such cases? Joining me now, Lalita Kumaramangalam is a former chairperson at the National Commission for Women. Ranjana Kumari is director for the Center for Social Research and prominent activist herself. And Akriti Bhatia is a former assistant professor at Miranda House and a sociologist. I appreciate your joining us. I want first to put a figure which has stunned me while doing research, and I want each of you to respond to that. A 2018 NSUI survey in Delhi University said 1 in 4 women face sexual harassment on their campus. A 2022 survey done by Satyaki Dasgupta and Anisha Mukherjee, both research scholars, showed 1 in 10 had been sexually assaulted in higher education institutions. Lalita Kumaramangalam, quick responses from all of you to these numbers first. What seems to have happened in Odisha could be symptomatic of a wider problem. A woman in a campus is not safe.
Rajdeep, from the data that you have just given us, it's fairly obvious that it is exactly as you say it is. That in India, on campuses across the country, women are still not safe. It is 2025 and we need to really hang our heads in shame if in our educational institutions, in our universities, our colleges, maybe even our schools, our girls are not safe. The whole country, in fact, the whole world says that without education, a woman will always remain as almost like a second-class citizen of her country and the world. So when we are desperately trying to bring women into the mainstream, to help them to live better lives, empowerment seems a very hollow word sometimes, Rajdeep. What empowerment when women are not even safe from their own teachers? You know, from birth, you're taught that you respect your teacher. They teach you, they empower you, they train you, they show you how life should be lived. When one of them is going to harass women, and in such a way that they can't even protect themselves, and the system, the entire system, whether it's the police or politics or the bureaucracy.
No, here the
or
principal, ma'am,
families, etc.
here the principal was actually seen to protect the professor rather than take the side of the student, was seen to protect the
and
professor.
no FIR has yet been filed. So the entire system is actually protecting the perpetrator, the criminal, and not another young girl whose life has unnecessarily been lost. I mean, this is happening everywhere.
Okay, the professor and the principal, of course, have since been arrested. But Akriti Bhatia, when you first heard of this story, you're a former assistant professor at Miranda House in Delhi. Are you surprised by it? Were you surprised that the manner in which this is taken? There seems to be an asymmetry of power between the professor and the principal, both men, and a woman who's gone to complain. That scene where the accused is around the same table as the woman, in a way reflects perhaps the asymmetry of power.
No, Rajdeep ji, I wasn't surprised because unfortunately there's an outrage only when there's a serious incident or a big case that gets highlighted, or if there's somebody who kind of just opens up about something big. But actually it's an everyday issue for students and even for female faculty members. it's something that is according to the same study that you reported, over 40% also refrain from reporting such incidents. So this
You're
also
saying
has to
40,
say some
you're
really
saying
big
40%.
about
Let me get that
the
right.
kind of
So that
pure
because you're,
distrust.
ma'am, there's a problem with your audio, but let me get that right. You said 40% of women who suffer from sexual harassment refrain from reporting it. Am I correct? As per that report.
Yes, that they keep the same one, the one which says that 1 in 10 had been sexually harassed in higher
Right.
education institutions, and the reasons are very simple. It's because they fear from resisting against figures of authority, and they do not trust the institutions because they feel that institutions will again prefer reputation over justice. And thirdly, if they are reporting such instances, there's another structural issue they might have to discontinue their academic their studies, and they might be married off. So what we really need to talk about here are the larger structural issues which women face every day. And what ends up happening is that there's moral policing, and students are given weird very unrealistic curfew timings, and those kinds of things. So
Right.
what we really need to do is to challenge, and this ICC, the GS Cash, the Gender Sensitization Committee Against Sexual Harassment, really needs to step up, and they really need to kind of the 99% of these colleges have reported zero incidents, which is absolutely not the case. And this is not in any way reflecting safety in campuses. It's reflecting silence, it's reflecting ignorance. And I think this is what really needs to be challenged.
Right.
And the Odisha case is one such example where repeated attempts and courage of the student to repeatedly bring it up also did not help, and we see such incidents happening.
Arkiti,
I
I'm
think
just going to stop you. I'm just going to stop you for a moment because you raised the issue of complaints committees. Now, Ranjana Kumari, in this particular case, there was an internal complaints committee. The student goes there. The committee apparently carries out an investigation, claims that they did not find any corroborative evidence of sexual harassment, but still recommends the transfer or suspension of the HOD. What does the principal do? Sit on it and apparently plan to reinstate the HOD. The girl gets desperate, eventually self-immolates herself. What are these committees all about? These internal complaint committees, if they are not able to resolve these issues, then there is something seriously wrong with these committee systems.
Well, Rajdeep, we sit on 39 government and corporate sector committees, internal complaints committees. I can tell you the internal story. They are supposed to have every quarterly meeting. They don't have it. They are supposed to inform every employee, everybody in that particular unit working, that there is this committee, this is the address, this is the phone number. Anyway, this college story is little different because in this college they had the committee, and that's our regular experience that they do right. And as you heard that 40% women don't complain. 300 whole of the 2023 they have reported only 376 instances across the country. UGC received only 376 cases. Now what does that speak? There is not an institution, there is not a college, there is not a university where there is a direct relationship of either boss and the someone who's working under him, or there is a professor, and that's a very close relationship because students have to study, they have to submit their dissertations, research. There's a constant contact, and in that there is so much of harassment goes on. We studied in the primest institution of this country, but there also there were cases, and we had to fight and complain and get the professors held accountable for that. But you know what really happens when women complain? So on her side, she's so worried that everybody will isolate her. She has to keep silent, otherwise everybody, she's a troublemaker, or she is not telling the truth. That's where it starts, that she's not honest, she's not telling the truth, she wants something, some favor, that's why she's doing it. Number two, the people who sit on the committee to inquire, and we have sat, and I told you my personal experience sitting on these committees, that they all gang up. When I say they all gang up, means if this is the position of authority, somebody has then Everybody, principal, professor, lecturer, everybody, the committee members will gang up. I do not know who were sitting on their committee in this college. Were there any external member? Did they have regular meetings of these committees? And then, you see, she died not because she was, she complained and she did not. She died because there's an institutional silence. They pushed her. They have driven her to commit suicide. And they should be held responsible because
You're
after
saying
having got
you're saying they've driven her to commit suicide. I just want to throw some numbers, ma'am. Just a minute. The number of sexual harassment complaints reported by higher education institutes in 2017-18, and these are only reported, as was pointed out, 40% cases don't even get reported. 2017-18, universities reported 46 cases while colleges reported 3. Numbers spiked in 2018-19, universities filing 141 complaints, colleges 31. 2019-20, 266 from universities, 24 from colleges. 2020-21, 51 complaints from universities, 37 from colleges. It went up to 38 university complaints, 2 from colleges in 21-22. Then to 378 cases in 22-23, colleges filed 47. This is UGC figures. The point that is being made, Lalita Kumaramangalam, the NCW, for example, many believe that it is a body which is toothless and also will strike depending on which is the ruling government. If it's an opposition ruled state, because NCW in a way is given its members come from the central government, they will quickly move into that state. Don't move when there's a BJP ruled state. Are all these bodies also needing, they need a reality check, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. It also a lot depends on the head of the organization. If that particular person is not worried about advancement in politics or bothered about politics or offending anybody in her own state, etc., then yes, some good work can get done. But otherwise, there is an enormous amount of pressure, which is, I suspect, exactly what happened in this case. Because it's very, very strange that an FIR was not filed. Also, Rajdeep, I think that all committees should have at least a minimum of 50% outside members. Otherwise, as Akriti said, it's packed with people who want to somehow save the reputation of the college, somehow make sure that, as Ranjana ji said, that the girl is painted as a liar or bad character or wanting a favor, etc., etc. I don't know if getting more 50% of the complaints committee members from external sources would work out. But the problem is that as of now, because education has become huge money in this country, let's not forget that. Everybody is too busy saving their own vested interests, and nobody really seems to bother. It seems to have been almost internalized.
So you make a good point. You make a good point. You make a good point. It's reputation over justice in a way. So, let's save the reputation of the college and let's not sully it with what a girl student has said. Akriti, do you believe that it is even worse in smaller towns than in urban centers? You taught in Delhi University. Is there a greater protection in an urban center, in a place like Balasore? Perhaps the equation, the asymmetry of power is even greater in favor of the men.
Definitely, I think it would have. It's going to be much worse in tier 2, tier 3 cities and towns. But I would also make a comparison within Delhi. I studied from a premier institution, SRCC, and during fest time, there were so many cases during concerts that there was inappropriate touching that was reported, but still nothing major could happen. You couldn't identify. There were dark spaces, and then the whole Pinjra Tod movement. So I would want to make a point here. A lot is also about campus politics, the kind of campus politics that is prevalent, where women, girls are vocal enough to report instances. But if I compare my master's in JNU, it was a completely different kind of an environment. At 3 a.m., it was absolutely normal for girls to go from library to hostels. So I think within Delhi you will find these kinds of asymmetries, but in Delhi University, I would still say that the politics is quite rogue and rowdy, and you
But,
find
but
that.
you're saying the emphasis is in a way on the college administrations. They are the ones who have to create those kind of safe spaces. Am I correct broadly? Colleges, when you
Yes.
mentioned JNU there, if the college provides safe spaces, then you in a way empower the woman. If you don't provide that, then you don't do so, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So administration is definitely something that is very, very pertinent in this case. But the ICC is actually dysfunctional across, because as we said, there are very big structural reasons of
Right.
why certain incidents do not get reported. In fact, girl students don't even know many times that a
Yes.
professor or a staff person who's just casually making catcalling remarks and all would fall under the purview of sexual harassment.
You
So I
make a very
think there's
good
a lot of awareness that
you,
needed.
you, you make a very good point about casual sexism, and that brings me to a final point there, Ranjana Kumari. Is part of the here are professors. You would expect professors to be socially conditioned to recognize what constitutes sexual harassment or casual sexism, but even that appears in this case certainly not to have happened. Instead, the professor, by all accounts, seems to have seized on the vulnerability of the student. Is that something that is even more deeply troubling? That here is a college professor, a college administration where this happens.
Rajdeep, first of all, sexism is sexism. There is nothing casual about it. So I really beg to differ with you that sexism is prevalent, and that's what happens. I'm glad that Akriti brought the point about JNU. My own experience in JNU has been great. We have been all activists, working there day, night, library, whatever, friends, boys, girls.
Right.
There was nothing, no, because the cultural ethos of the university, from the time the university started, we were third batch of the university, and we all created that kind of a culture in the university, and authorities supported that. But here, when you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, roads are not safe, homes are not safe, workplaces are not safe, and similarly college centers are not safe, colleges are not safe. Now, educational institution, I want to fix responsibility. UGC should ensure whether these committees are functional. UGC has to bring a review report, perhaps present to the Parliament of India, that what is happening to our campuses, why
But there
so
are
many girls
hundreds.
are
You see, part of the problem there, Ranjana ji, there are hundreds of campuses. As was just mentioned, you have colleges exploding. Many of them capitation fee colleges that are looking only to make money. Who is going to control and monitor, especially
cannot,
some of these private colleges?
Rajdeep, these can be all controlled. Globally, it gets controlled. Why we are not able to do it? Because nobody is bothered about what's happening to women. You can silence them. You can drive them to commit suicide. You can get all the people harassing them can get away with. There is no punishment system, which is, police did not write an FIR. Can you imagine? I mean, some girl has to commit suicide and she approached everybody. As I heard the whole thing, I spoke to people there. I think she approached the MLA, she approached the education minister. So many things she did to get justice. But everybody connived together,
I,
and they really
I,
chose silence over justice. That's what
okay.
happened in this case.
Silence over justice, trying to protect the reputation of a college, which was in any case should have been under the scanner ahead of justice, and now politics over justice. All that we want in cases like this is swift justice and exemplary measures taken to ensure that such incidents don't happen. The UGC can't wash its hands away, nor can college administrations. What happened to this Beti of Odisha is unacceptable. And this is true of any state in the country. Stop playing politics with it. Ensure swift and sure justice above all else would be the message. I appreciate my guests joining us and shedding light on what is, dare I say, one of the worst kept secrets in our college campuses. Let's turn from there to more breaking news that we are getting. The Chief Election Commissioner has now reacted a day after India Today's reality check on the way the Bihar Special Intensive Revision exercise is taking place. The Chief Election Commissioner has said he thanks eligible electors for taking part in the SIR or the Special Intensive Revision. CC to India Today, cleaning electoral rolls much needed. 88.65% enumeration forms received, 4.5% electors not found at addresses, 6.85% forms remain to be collected. Now, those are figures that the CEC is throwing at us, but as our report yesterday showed, many forms are without documents and are being signed without putting the documents in place, only to show the big numbers. Aishwarya Paliwal now joins us. Aishwarya, it seems that the Election Commission seems to say sab changa si, there's no problem.
Well, Rajdeep, if you look at the numbers which at the moment are coming out, we are looking close to 35 lakh. This is what the Election Commission at the moment is telling us. They are saying that close to 13 lakh people are deceased. If we look at the numbers, close to 17 lakh people have either moved out, and the remaining close to 5 lakh people are the ones which are a duplication. So that's the number that we at the moment are looking at. 35 lakhs, that's how the Election Commission has come at this number. The Commission is also saying that once all the remuneration forms are with them, then a double check is also something, Rajdeep, that will be done by the Election Commission. We still have 9 more days to go, but the Commission believes that this will be a pure electoral roll that we will see, and this is just the beginning, Rajdeep. We will see in other states also, one after the other, this revision being done.
Okay, so the Election Commission is not willing to accept all the criticism that it's getting at the moment. They believe sab changa si, as I said, Aishwarya Paliwal joining me. Well, the truth is, it is not sab changa si. Because as controversy continues over the ongoing voter list revision in Bihar, the Election Commission earlier this week announced that people from Bihar living outside the state can use a QR code to submit their enumeration forms online. The truth is, thousands of migrant workers, many of them daily wage labor, are either not aware of the EC initiative or simply are concerned over the technological difficulties they will encounter. Our correspondents went across some of Delhi's slum areas to find out how the migrant labor are looking at this exercise online. Take a look.
73% of seasonal migrants in India are from Bihar. Many of them move out of the state to find work and return after 3 to 4 months. There are many more who live in cities across India but are voters in Bihar. And they are among those who could lose out in the special intensive revision of voter list being carried out by the Election Commission. The EC this week issued advertisement in dailies urging people from Bihar living outside the state to use a QR to submit their enumeration forms. In this Jhuggi cluster in Chitra Vihar in East Delhi, home to thousands of migrant workers from Bihar, most are not aware of the EC initiative.
ये QR कोड वगैरह दिया है, लेकिन इससे हम नहीं कर पाएंगे ना, नॉलेज नहीं है इसमें कैसे स्कैन करना है, कैसे QR कोड डालना है, स्कैन मालूम नहीं है। 2024 में MP का जो वोट चुनाव हुआ था उसको वोट दिए थे हमने, और फिर अभी नया नियम लगा रहा है, कहाँ से हम वोट देंगे? नहीं देंगे, किसी को भी किसी पार्टी को वोट नहीं देंगे। अब यहाँ से हम दिल्ली से लिए बिहार जाएंगे, 2000 रुपये एक तरफ से लगा के, फिर 2000 लगा के आएंगे वोट देने के लिए। पैसा कौन देगा? सरकार देगी। सरकार देगी तो हम जाएंगे, नहीं तो नहीं जाएंगे।
Muhammad Iqbal from Purnia is not aware of the app, but went to Bihar to submit his form physically.
पता तो नहीं था सर, मैं आज ही देखा हूँ और मैं रजिस्ट्रेशन करवा चुका हूँ, BLO के थ्रू करवाए। प्लस अगर इनके बारे में पता होता तो मैं गांव में होता, फिर तो इनके बारे में अगर पता होता तो यहाँ से भी करवा सकते, तो मुझे गांव जाने का आवश्यकता नहीं पड़ती। कुछ आदमी ऐसे हैं जिनके पास प्रूफ है ही नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं है उनके पास, मतलब ये मतलब खाने के लिए रोते हैं वो, और उनको ये कागज़ के बारे में क्या पता होगा सर।
Many others shared similar concerns.
सर हम लोग को कुछ पता नहीं है। आप देखते मेरे पास प्रीपेड मोबाइल है, हम लोग का पहले से ही बिहार में नाम जुड़ा हुआ है। आप उस नाम को काट करके हटा करके डेट ऑफ बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट मारे, जन्म पत्री मांगे या विदेश का सर्टिफिकेट, ये लोग हम लोग नहीं दे सकते। मानिए ये हुआ जब हम खाता खुलवाने जाते हैं तो मूल रूप से आधार मांगते हैं, पैन कार्ड मांगते हैं, राशन कार्ड मांगते हैं। तो हम लोग जो नॉर्मल परिवार से जो है गरीब कमाने वाला रोज टपके वाले, वो ये डेट ऑफ बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट कहाँ देगा, स्कोर कोड कहाँ से कर पाएगा।
Even those with smartphones like Dharmendra Kumar Shah from Purnia struggle with the tech barrier.
गांव से फ़ोन आ रहे हैं, कल से फ़ोन आ रहे हैं, ऐसे ऐसे लग रहा है, ऐसे ऐसे पेपर लग रहे हैं, ऐसे ऐसे करना होगा। कहीं का भी एक जगह का कुछ भी हो तो एक ही जगह होना चाहिए। सर एहसान तो कर, मुझे उतना चलाने नहीं आते ना, बस किसी को सुनना है सुनाना है बस।
India Today team today reached one of the JJ clusters in the national capital to know the reality. Many of the people, those who reside in JJ clusters and are from Bihar, said they are not aware about the QR code, this advertisement. And many doesn't have a smartphone, many doesn't know how to read and write, and many are not able to fill form online. They clearly said this is more confusing than a solution. With cameraman Ankit Singh and Mol Bali, Delhi.
I hope someone in the Election Commission is watching our series of stories, the gap between advertisements and the reality on the ground. Let's turn to political wars. First to West Bengal, where the Trinamool Congress held a protest rally against the alleged targeting of Bengali-speaking people in BJP-ruled states. The TMC and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee claims that Bengalis are being detained and dubbed Bangladeshis and Rohingyas. She warned of nationwide protests if people of Bengal are targeted. The BJP's Suvendu Adhikari hit back and accused the Chief Minister of supporting Rohingyas and enabling fake voter registrations. Clearly, the battle lines are being drawn ahead of West Bengal elections next year. Listen in.
हर इंसान जो इंडिया का नागरिक है हम उसको सम्मान करते हैं, लेकिन इसको मतलब नहीं होता है कि बंगाली का ऊपर आप अत्याचार करे, ये हम नहीं छोड़ेंगे। ताদের দিয়ে কাজ করাবে আর বাংলা ভাষায় কথা বললে তাকে জেলে নিয়ে চলে যাবে কোন অধিকারে? वेस्ट बंगाल इज नॉट इन इंडिया। जब महाराष्ट्र में हिंदी भाषी को निकाल दिया था तो हम लोगों ने पहले आवाज उठाया था, इसको समझना पड़ेगा। जैसे क्या हुआ गया বাঙালিদের উপর আপনাদের এত রাগ কেন? কি করেছে বাঙালিরা আপনাদের?
ममता जी रोहिंग्या को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए बांग्ला भाषी बंगाली ये सब नारा उठा रहा है। ये बिहार में जैसे हो रहा है बंगाल में होना चाहिए और सब रोहिंग्या मुसलमान का नाम डिलीट हो जाना चाहिए।
That's not the only political war. Let's turn to the political war in Assam, where Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was in Guwahati today and alleged that Assam Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma is behaving like a king involved in corruption, and said that if his party comes to power, Hemanta will be sent to jail. The Assam Chief Minister says it's Rahul Gandhi who's out on bail and will soon find the law closing in on him. Listen in.
क्योंकि वो जानते हैं कि एक ना एक दिन कांग्रेस के जो बब्बर शेर हैं उन्हें पकड़ के जेल के अंदर डाल देंगे। मैं बिना सोचे समझे नहीं बोलता हूं और आमतौर से जब मैं जो बोलता हूं वो होता है। और मैं आज आपको बोल रहा हूं कि कुछ ही समय में आपको यही मीडिया वाले आपके चीफ मिनिस्टर को जेल जाते हुए दिखाएंगे और इससे उनको ना मोदी बचा पाएगा ना अमित शाह बचा पाएगा। आप देखना वो जेल के अंदर आपको दिखेंगे।
Meanwhile, the Assam Chief Minister has hit back in a message posted on Twitter X. Hemanta Biswa Sarma said Rahul Gandhi is facing allegations of massive corruption. He's involved in a 5,000 crore National Herald scam. He claimed Rahul Gandhi will be remembered as one of the most corrupt Congress chiefs. Remember, Assam, like Bengal, also goes to the polls next year. Okay, let's turn from political wars to history wars. Babur was a brutal and ruthless conqueror, slaughtering entire populations of cities, enslaving women and children, and taking pride in erecting towers of skulls made from the slaughtered people of plundered cities. Akbar ordered the massacre of some 30,000 civilians, and the surviving women and children of Chittorgarh were enslaved. So generations that learned that Akbar was great, that Babur founded the Mughal dynasty, will now also be told that Akbar and Babur must be seen very, very differently. And that's really part of how the new NCERT textbooks for class 7 and 8 students are going to view Mughal history. Are the Mughals being villainized, or is this course correction? Milan Sharma brings you the latest controversy over history writing.
Chapter 2 in the theme B starts with a note on history's darker period, so which mentions how these chapters of Indian history have been darkest hours for the country.
History wars are back. The NCERT's latest social sciences textbook for class 8th has a chapter on Mughals and Delhi Sultanate, which mention instances of religious intolerance and carries a note on what it calls some darker periods in history. In the textbook, Babur, the founder of Mughal Empire, is described as a brutal and ruthless conqueror, while Akbar's rule is portrayed as a blend of brutality and intolerance, detailing the massacre of 30,000 people during his attack on the Rajput fort of Chittorgarh. And the attacks on the Hindu temples by Sultanate ruler Alauddin Khilji are detailed. The Mughal jizya tax levied on non-Muslims is described as a tool of public humiliation.
They also talk about how the sultans imposed a tax called jizya, which was subjected to all the non-Muslims subjects who were also called infidels. And of course, they were either told to pay the tax or formed a financial and social incentive for subjects to convert to Islam. So the religion conversions that were happening, the book also is talking about that.
The NCERT has added a disclaimer, a note on some darker periods in history, which states no one should be held responsible today for events of the past. The note appears to be aimed at discouraging communal interpretations.
मुझे लगता है टारगेट क्या होना चाहिए? टारगेट होना चाहिए कि आपको सिर्फ उनको नॉलेज देनी है, ना ये टारगेट होना चाहिए कि आपको नफरत फैलानी है, स्टूडेंट को उनके दिमाग में डालना है.
The opposition has alleged the change in a bid to hijack history and spread hate and communalism.
जिस तरह हमारे इतिहास को हाईजैक करने की प्रयास कर रहे हैं, ये हमारे बच्चों की, हमारी जनरेशन की पढ़ाई में जो सांप्रदायिकता की बीज डालने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, ये बेहद गलत है.
The ND, on the other hand, has defended the changes.
गुरु तेग बहादुर जी की शहादत, गुरु अर्जन देव जी की शहादत, वो सबके सब मुगलों के चलते हुई. तो ये तो कई साल पहले होना चाहिए था, जो अब भारत सरकार ने करना शुरू किया है.
ये पढ़ाई जाती थी पहले ट्रेड टू टेरिटरी.
Do the NCERT textbooks try to portray history more correctly, or is it an attempt to influence young minds? The jury is divided. With Milan Sharma, Bureau Report, India Today.
And a short while ago, the NCERT has released a statement saying Class 8 being the last year of the middle stages, the students are expected to acquire broad multidisciplinary perspective in understanding of our past between 13th to mid-19th century. NCERT textbook shows how the various events of that period have helped to shape and influence the evolution of India of today. All the facts presented in this textbook are based on well-known primary and secondary academic sources. However, in order to avoid generation of any prejudice and understanding, a note on history's darker period has been added for the benefit of the learners. Is politics dictating school syllabi? Is this an attempt to villainize the Mughals? Or is this course correction by the NCERT? Those are the questions I want to raise. Short face-off. Ruchika Sharma is a historian on medieval Indian history. Ratan Sharda is author, also closely associated with the RSS. I appreciate both of you joining us. Ruchika, your first reactions to these NCERT textbooks. Is this course correction, trying to project an objective view of Akbar and Babur, pointing out the darker sides or darker shades of their rule?
First of all, I think there was a time when there were NCERT books which said that the term dark period or dark ages in history is a ahistorical term. It's kind of sad to see that today that entire term has made it back to the NCERT and is being used as an objective term, as if classifying certain acts in history as dark or classifying certain periods in history as dark is a very historical thing to do. Academically, these are terms which have been completely debunked, and we've said that these are terms which are not to be used because they create this idea that somehow there are golden periods, quote unquote, and darker periods, which creates this comparison which cannot be done because there are different historical contexts for different time periods. So this comparison across time periods of dark and gold anyway is very ahistorical, and it's sad to see that NCERT is resorting to this. The other important point over here is that the recent changes in the NCERT 8th class textbooks, a lot of it are factually incorrect. For example, there is this particular bit where they say that the jizya was brought as a tax to incentivize the non-Muslims to convert to Islam in order to stop paying the jizya. Which primary source is the NCERT referring to? Firstly, the NCERT doesn't tell us that. But also, if it does, I would really like to file an RTI and try and understand which source, whether it's during Akbar's time, before Akbar's time, after Akbar's time, or any time in the Islamic world when jizya is first instituted or goes on being instituted. Where is this source coming from? There is literally no primary source that says that. Then it goes on to say that Akbar abolished jizya much later in his reign, which is again incorrect. 1560 is when Akbar's reign starts. 1562 is when he abolishes jizya. That is not much later. This is a man with 45 years of rule. So if you really want to talk about, much later, it should ideally be 30 years into his rule or something, right?
Okay.
So the NCERT is blatantly
I
lying.
take your point. I take your larger point. You're claiming if you're going by primary sources, as students should be taught based on primary sources, then those primary sources should be cited. Ratan Sharda, how do you respond? Do you believe this is course correction? When it is suggested, for example, that the barbarity of Babur or the acts of oppression of Akbar are also highlighted, do you believe this is course correction and objective history or a saffronized history?
Rajdeep, good evening. You know very well that the history was rewritten with so-called scientific terminology somewhere in 1990s by the Aligarh School and JNU historians who believed that we should whitewash the history and present an amiable form of history which will try to disown the atrocities of the invaders. Why are you focusing on Akbar? Okay, if you focus on Akbar, the most interesting part is that Akbar, there are two so-called great kings by the earlier historians. One is Akbar the Great, second is Ashoka the Great. They were the only two kings who had a theocratic state. Akbar had his Dine-e-Ilahi, Ashok had his Buddhism, and both had huge history of atrocities which were sought to be softened by historians. I don't know why. And
But no one mentions, sir, in this book the atrocities of Ashoka. No one will mention what happened during Kalinga.
Well, corrections can happen. But what I'm saying is, when you people start creating this controversy around the history was never balanced. Where did I read about the Cholas and the Pandyans? Cholas lasted from 300 BC to 1300, I think 13 BC. You had Ahom kingdom for hundreds of years. You had Vijay Nagaram for nearly 300 years. What was Mughal period? The peak of Mughal period was 150 to 200 years. We talk of Mughal period, do we talk of the resistance given by the Hindus? That is the only reason Hindus survived. Every other community vanished from where the Islamic conquest came. No, we don't talk about that. So Aryan Indian theory, it was put to our head that we are all outsiders. We were one of the parts of the karma that returned coming to India and invaded and stayed there. But that has been falsified. So now it is called Aryan migration theory. So can we at least now, if people like Thapar has come back to say ATI is wrong, AIT is wrong, but Aryan migration is better. So that means there is always scope for people to look at the history. And what is the history that NCERT is saying? That history which has been said by Jadunath Sarkar, Asi Majumdar before the Marxists took over. And what was the ground for these historians? The Mughal historians who chronicle the lives of Babur, of Akbar, Aurangzeb, and everybody. Are we going to deny that? So the horrid past of Akbar, that 30,000 people are put to sword.
Sir,
Women went for Johar.
sir, the same rules will have to be applied for all rulers, most of whom were conquerors, and you will have to look at it, history, in a much more complex manner, not in a black and white of villains and heroes. That's the only point. But Ruchika, you want to respond? Because what Ratan Sharda says is an argument made by many right-wingers that history was driven by the Marxists, and therefore they highlighted Akbar the Great as some kind of a secular ideal, glossing over perhaps some of the barbarities that were also committed in the course of his conquest.
Absolutely. There are a couple of things that Mr. Sharda mentioned that I want to respond to. Firstly, the fact that the Cholas had an uninterrupted rule from 3000 BC all the way to 1300 AD is absolutely incorrect. There were 3 different types of Cholas who ruled in different regions. They are not one. And each of them had probably 300 BCE is not where the Cholas start. I'll just take a moment. 1st century AD all the way to 3rd century AD is the first time the Cholas rule. Then that's a different Cholas. Then of course there is around 5th century to 6th century AD. That's a different Cholas. And then the great Cholas come in, which come in from 9th century, which is very much taught. In fact, even the Sangam Cholas, the 1st century AD Cholas are taught. So both the Cholas are taught. But what we are not taught, and this is what I'm coming to, is for example, when the Chola rulers are attacking the Chalukya rulers, right, in around 1042 AD, they break a host of Jain temples and burn this entire town called Kolipakkai. This is something that is not mentioned, and this somehow does not for the NCERT qualify as something which is bad enough to label the Cholas as brutal rulers or as cruel rulers. However, Akbar and his siege of Chittor is reason enough in this man's 45 years of reign, one instance, to call him a brutal ruler. However, we don't apply the same standards to the Cholas. So I don't understand why there are these double standards. Also,
Ruchika, I've just got a minute. We'll try and do a wider debate, but I think I take your point, the double standards that you believe that exist in the way these books are being written. Ratan Sharda, 30 seconds. You want to respond to that? Because surely students deserve, nobody denies that, a more complex reading of history. But these books seem to reduce it to a very simplified version of history. There are enough Hindu rulers, the Cholas were also just now cited, who've also resorted to brutality. They were conquerors, they were expanding their kingdoms. Why are we only down? We seem to have gone by, to the point of only villainizing the Mughals.
Well, Rajdeep, at least people of your kind and the historian have agreed that there were historicism of Hindus. The dark period they talk of, millions of Hindus perished and thousands of temples were destroyed because they were bigots, because they were non-believers, they were kafirs. Is it not written by the chroniclers of the
so Hindu rulers? What happens to Hindu rulers who destroyed stupas?
I'm happy that you come to the stage. We are ready to say that history is complex. It has to be read from both the sides, and do not believe in monochrome history that the Marxists have thrown at us all these years. At least you agree to that. I'm very happy on that.
Okay, let me leave it there. Hopefully, our students will get to read a history that is far more complex than these NCERT textbooks at the moment seem to suggest. But we need a wider debate on this. And I'm glad at least that the debate has been triggered off. Ratan Sharda and Ruchika, appreciate your joining us. Let's turn to our Get Real India story. A school that exists only on paper, but the students are forced to study in a leaking kitchen shed. In Chhattisgarh, Sarguja district, promises made 19 years ago have crumbled like the walls these students sit under. Take a look at tonight's Get Real India story.
This is where the government primary school of Kudare Jangalpada should have been. Instead, it runs from a crumbling and leaking Anganwadi kitchen shed.
सामान को बचाने के लिए और बाहर में छोटा जगह बचता है, उसमें कुछ बच्चों को कक्षा वाइज बैठा के पढ़ाते हैं और बाकी किचन में बच्चे बैठ रहे हैं। क्या है खाना किचन वाला खाना सहायिका जो है हम लोग का समूह का यहीं पे बगल में ही है, सटा हुआ घर है, कुछ ही दूर में है यहीं पे, और वहीं पे जाके देख लेते हैं हम लोग, खाना को वहीं बनवा रहे हैं अभी।
The headmaster says the high officials have been informed many times.
खाली दीवार खड़ा कर दिया गया है, न उसका सेप्टिक टैंक है, न कोई उसमें कुछ व्यवस्था ही नहीं है। और स्कूल मद से कुछ पैसा हम लोग को अभी इस पिछले सत्र से इस बार नहीं मिला है।
इससे पहले मतलब कि किसी के भवन में रूम में लग रहा था स्कूल, इसके बाद में आंगनबाड़ी बना तो आंगनबाड़ी में आ गया स्कूल, और 2006 में आंगनबाड़ी स्कूल का भवन बनने का ये हुआ, लेकिन आज तक नहीं बना, यह अधूरा पड़ा है।
19 years and counting, this village in Sarguja district of Chhattisgarh is still waiting for its school building. With Sumit Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.
These are the stories that we will continue to highlight in the hope that things will get better. Let me leave you though with our image tonight. Heavy thunderstorms and flash floods lashing New York City and New Jersey, flooding parts of the Manhattan subway, disrupting train services. That's right, those images are not in Mumbai or Delhi or Gurugram or Bengaluru, but in New York. Authorities issuing several flash flood warnings across the New York City metropolitan area. The difference is, in our systems, these stories have become endemic and systemic. In New York, hopefully, the city gets its act together that much faster. Let me leave you with that image in the hope that you're safe. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubhratri, Jai Hind. Namaskar.
No, he shouldn't. He should get out of the station.